Hey man, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sweet as. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everybody. Hussein, mashallah. We want you up here as well. Red Panda's here, bro. I always love that little thumbnail you got there, bro. I don't know. It looks like a little tail of a cat or something. It's cool, bro. Welcome, hopeful. Praise God, of course. The Lord is the one who holds all the atoms together, man. So we do praise him. Got a bee listening. A couple of little lights there. That looks like a cool little UFO pic there, bee. And then we've got Arcadian as well. Got a few more add-in. Brian Gnosis. Welcome, Brian, man. Nice to see you, brother. I was a bit late to this one last week, so I didn't really get to join in properly. You know, I was a late boy. They had me working late, brothers, as they always do, man. I got that phone call right at the end on a Friday night. A couple of people didn't turn up, didn't want to do that were meant to do, so I ended up pulling in overtime. So I was late to the show, late to the party. You know what I mean? Welcome, everybody. Alhamdulillah. Mammy's praise God. It's been a hot day today in old blighty, old the UK. I don't know where everyone else is from around the world, but it was a warm day in the van. And we don't have protection like animals in the UK. Animals, so you're not allowed to leave them in a hot vehicle. It's against the law. Of course, we agree with that. But humans don't get the same courtesy. So I don't have no aircon in the van. And I was sweating up a storm in there. I reckon, you know, certain conditions arrived, I would have had a rain cloud above my head. I was that hot, you know. But alhamdulillah, I'm back home. I'm relaxing, ready to do the show tonight. It was an interesting week, wasn't it, for old UFO? It was an interesting week. We got a new guy stepping forward, good old Matt Brown, speaking his understanding of the story. So we are going to talk about that tonight. We're going to go through that. We're going to go through quite a few little bits and bobs. But yeah, it's just going to be hopefully similar to last week. We just have a little nit-nat. Few people jump on. Nit-nat in the UK means like little chit-chat, little speak, you know, little bouncing off one another. If someone wants to say something. Let me just turn off my, what do you call it? My notifications. So people are going to be buzzing me now. Yeah, so we're going to talk about a few little bits and bobs. Hopefully I'm nice and clear and crystal as I speak because I've got a little setup here going. I'm using my computer, my old computer today. So hopefully we'll be able to, it's nice and clear and everyone can hear me. So some of the stuff we want to talk about today, and this is going to be going off from what Matt Brown mentioned. He said something that I've really liked what he said. And I hope everybody understood the way I did. Maybe I got it wrong, maybe not. So I'm just going to say what I thought. Matt Brown, very interesting man. First, I want to talk about his credibility, and I want to hear what everyone else thinks. When I watched that interview, we could call it that, I kind of felt like he didn't want to be part of it. I don't know if everyone else agrees with that, but he did come across like he was almost, he was obliged to do it. And he didn't seem comfortable. I wouldn't say he was very good at speaking. He wasn't a good speaker. He didn't seem like he was comfortable speaking. Like what I mean by that is like he doesn't do that. I don't think his role, whatever it was within the Pentagon and within the department, the State Department, I don't think he was a person who was leading meetings. He seemed like someone who wasn't well equipped to speak and to be interviewed. I definitely I felt like he was reluctant to engage, or at least wasn't able to engage the way that some of the other more, let's say, charismatic characters who have come forward as whistleblowers are. Certainly, I felt he was nervous, maybe a little bit apprehensive and, let's say anxious about talking about what he knew. And it kind of felt like Corbell, particularly, like him or hate him, he's done a great job bringing forward people like him, I think, personally. But I think Corbell was really pushing the idea that, there was a danger to his life. And he agreed with that. He did feel there's a danger to his life. And the last thing I want to say, he's ruined his career. Whatever way you want to look at it, this bloke's ruined his career. And he's not going to hold the same positions and office that he held before, especially because of, what he said. Whether it be true or not, he has ruined his career. So obviously he felt whatever he experienced was true enough that he would come forward and effectively change the course of his career forever. And whether or not he's going to make money from doing that, or this has affected his bottom line, he clearly did it for a reason. I think that's because he does feel like there's a real danger to his life. So what does everyone else think about his credibility? Do they think he was telling the truth? I found him to be credible. I felt as well that, he didn't come across like he was prepared to talk about what he said. I don't think he seemed like any of it was rehearsed. It was a bit fumbly and bumbly the way he spoke, and nervous. Jittery as well. Even his voice had some sort of emotional layer to it. It didn't sound like he was, he felt confident and strong and talking about what he talked about. But what does everyone else think? I mean, am I alone in this, Imran? What do you reckon, bro?
Yeah, hi guys. Hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, it was, so like I said, man, firstly, hi to everyone. Thank you for coming on. Red Panda's joined us as well. It'd be nice to hear from him. I was a bit late last time, so he was off, but he kindly stayed on, come on to our stream, so that was really nice of him. But yeah, so I was in two minds, bro. Like I said to you on the messages, initially when I watched the first 15-20 minutes, I was like, something's off, something's not right. I mean, he's an intelligence guy. Why is he coming across very, like you said, jittery and off? And, something didn't seem on. He didn't want to be there. But then as I watched through, I did come, my mind did shift a bit in regards to, what I believed in regards to his credibility. And I think I'm still not 100%, but I think I'm pretty convinced that he's genuine. I was interested, though, in certain things he said, which we can, I guess, unpack today and discuss as we go along. But yeah, that's it for me in regards to his credibility. I'm still on the fence, leaning towards that he's credible.
Cool. Anyone else want to chime in? What did anyone else think about his credibility?
I can go real quick.
Yeah, go for it, bro. What do you reckon?
So there's all this backstory, right, about the way the hearing went down, remember? And then Corbell was kind of angry. So I feel like that has to kind of be factored in. And he did seem nervous. I am kind of worried though. Maybe he found some disinfo or something on the server. But I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic, and we'll see what they have next week. I imagine that because remember they were basically saying that Schellenberger, that guy was willing to testify before this episode, that before we knew who he was, that the Immaculate Constellation whistleblower was ready to testify, and then Schellenberger kind of came in out of nowhere, kind of swooped it. And I'd imagine that homeboy knew about that whole TMZ thing, and I feel like he's probably going to go along with that. I want to know where the whole if you say the name you'll die comes from. There's some questions I still have, and I guess if you watch the interview too, I feel like they kind of talk. It wasn't as chronological as it could have been, I feel like, and it kind of made it a little confusing to figure out what was happening when and where. But I don't know. He seemed like a nice guy, and he seemed like he was believing what he was saying, and I'm just going to try and be optimistic, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good position to take. I did find it a little odd, like you said, actually. You can talk about Lou, no problem. Nobody's got an issue when you mention old Louis. Yeah, Lou boy, the old Elizondo. But when it comes to the Grush or Grush or however you say his name, old David boy, if you mention Davey, game over.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, that is odd, isn't it? You could talk about anybody else, even Mellon, who used to work in that office. I believe they worked in the same, it was the Undersecretary of Defence Intelligence and Security is what I think Matt Brown was, I don't know if it was at that time, but he worked in the same office as Mellon. No mention whether or not if you bring up Mellon talking about this, no issue. When it comes to Dave, and just before we go to you again, Red, because you had your hand up, Dave, apparently, I can't remember where I heard this, and someone can verify this whether it's true or not, but apparently Dave, he stepped over the bounds, apparently, because he spoke about things that Mellon told him not to. And some of the people in the community, the UFO community, believe that it seemed to be that Chris Mellon is sort of like the master of ceremonies, so to speak, over this modern disclosure effort. Don't know if that's true or not, but apparently he was angry with Dave Grush because he said things he wasn't meant to in the interview with Ross. Go Red, and then you after him, Rob.
I don't remember that. That's cool. I do remember there was that thing with Dark Journalist where he was going to go talk to him, and then like I guess Melon said no. But yeah, we could go to whoever's next.
Go on, Rob.
Yeah, so interesting you mentioned, and I noticed that as well, the double standard, if you like, between the mentioning of, or Elizondo being mentioned on the inside and Grush being mentioned. Grush was a no-go, and Elizondo seemed to be fine. Now, assuming this guy is legit and everything he's saying is true and accurate, well, then that highlights, well, there's a difference of opinion amongst the insiders in regards to Grush and Elizondo. And this may be explained, if the assumption that I have, and I think some others have too as well, that Elizondo is not fully to be trusted, I guess, in regards to everything he says. He may be an insider playing a double game, whatever the case is, and Grush isn't. Grush was very genuine with this statement, and that may explain why Grush is, someone that they don't want to touch, and anyone that speaks about him gets in trouble, and Elizondo is fine, on the inside.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I think hopefully next week or whenever it comes out, the next episode, I hope that they dig into that a little bit more. Another thing I wanted to talk about, which I found a little bit odd, is that he mentions that however this server is or whatever access he had, whether it's, I don't know, because he didn't really say what his job was. He did say he did start doing a master's in security or something like that. My memory is not as sharp as it used to be, guys, but he said that from what he could tell, the last person to have access to the Immaculate Constellation file or server system was a female. And then they blurted out, or they, quieted out her name. And she's apparently a big name. And then he said that he was told it was impossible that it was her who had the access to it because she wasn't part of the DoD at that time. So it's obviously not, the first sort of culprit. Whenever you think of a female and, this part of the DoD, you're going to think of Gal, isn't it? Old Susan, right? Old Susie Gill. It wasn't her because she's been part of the DoD for a very long time. She's, if you like, she's cut from that cloth since, day one. But whoever this was, a big name, he said, who's now part of the DoD, and they blurted their name out. What do you think the significance is? Why would you blurt someone's name out as well? Because if it's an accusation and then he's been told, like he said, oh, the last person to have access is so-and-so, and they've said impossible, she wasn't part of the DoD, then what's it matter? Obviously, it's false information, but then why blurt it out? There's obviously some significance there. What do you think to that, guys? Because I thought that was odd, and there's maybe more to the story. Maybe that person holds a position of office today. Could it be that person was or is now one of the people that have been selected by Trump to head a particular investigation, so to speak? Who knows? But there's a lot of speculation to be had over that, who it might be and who she is. But I found that interesting that they blurted her out for whatever reason, and they kept it in. They could have just washed over that. It doesn't seem that relevant. But when you put it in and then you cover it, you hide it, you quieten out and dark out his, blur the screen and everything to hide it, but yet you've left it in there. It's because you want people to be aware of it. What do you think's going on there? Anyone have any ideas, or do you just think it's a bit of a red herring or something to add a bit of excitement to the production? What do you guys think? Is your hand up, Red? Is that your hand, or is it just?
No, my hand isn't up. Is it glitching? No, yeah.
Oh yeah, you know what these things like, bro. It's got hands up, it's got hands there, it's got everything going on when it glitches out. But yeah, I thought it was a bit odd. That was all. The next thing I want to talk about is probably maybe the most important bit, and I think that was when he said, and look, I don't want to get this wrong, so I'm gonna try and pull it up. We did have it written down, didn't we? And I don't know where I've put it, man. But effectively, what it was he said that the people who are in charge of the program, they are a group of elites who have access, essentially, just to summarize it, they have access to knowledge and information that we don't as the general public, number one. And they live in not another dimension, but I can't remember the word he used. I'm going to try and find it. Does anyone remember that quote? Everyone was sharing it. I shared it as well, and now I forgot because I'm an absolute donut. 1 second. Does anyone remember what he said? It was something like, not another dimension. What did he say?
That like
No, I don't remember. Okay.
it was a breakaway civilization type thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But he used a specific word. I've wrote down breakaway civilization, but I'm looking for the actual quote. 1 second. Sorry, guys. I'm having a bit of a...
Are you talking about the place where he says it has been allowed to infest every aspect of our society? Is that the one?
Yeah. Yeah. He said that, number one, it's that they've infested every aspect of society, and they can basically control not just like government and the corporate area, but everything. So why some of us ask questions, well, how come certain channels are getting deleted off YouTube? I'm not saying that that they're behind the deleting of everybody's channel, but certain information is held back. Certain individuals aren't being clear and honest about what they know. There is a great air of secrecy behind a lot of what's going on. But effectively, that he was saying, like Red, I think it was you just mentioned, that they're like a breakaway civilization who are like they're shells of understanding of this reality, and that they are at the top level. So what they know about this world and what we know are two different things. And what we're fed, if you like, in terms of information, and perhaps one could argue and go as far as saying even our food, right? Because there's a lot of conspiracies about what type of food we're given, and how they control especially in America, I'd say, how there's a lot of control over what goes into milk, and how the animals are fed and the type of feed they receive, and so on and so forth. Anyway, he's saying that there was like levels and shells to understanding of this reality. I found that to be the most fascinating part, because a breakaway civilization that has kind of, I want to put it this way. Say you're in a laboratory and you're working on the most advanced technology back in the day, right? And you have very specific protocols to keep everything secret, to not let this thing leak out. Maybe they're trying to find a new type of weapon or make a new discovery in physics that could help propel America to the front line, or Britain, or whoever it might be. And you make such a significant discovery that, and it's so, let's say, specific, that the small group that make this discovery effectively change their own direction. And they now are so powerful and so far ahead of the rest of us that they don't even need to answer to the people who tasked them with that discovery in the first place. And, all they've got to do is say, look, we've made a discovery. It's too dangerous for everyone else, so we're going to work on it in secret, and you've got to protect us from the people. But effectively, they had created such a great knowledge gap. It's kind of like when the Brits entered into some of the islands and lands in the past. We turned up with guns, these things that made fire and shot metal against people who had, wooden spears and darts. It was like such a huge difference between the two that they really didn't stand a chance. No matter how many numbers they put together to fight against the Brits, we were spitting fire at them, and they didn't even know what was happening. They were there, they heard a loud bang, and the next minute their friend is on the floor bleeding from a hole in his stomach. They don't see the bullet, they don't know what's going on. It was like magic to them, right? The discovery that was made, I'm just postulating here, right? The discovery was made so great and so world-changing for those people that they now don't need to answer to anybody else. They've made such a discovery that they've created a barrier between them and the rest of humanity. And that's what I gleaned from his statement, that they have made a discovery that is very difficult, if not almost impossible to replicate. Or they've met with another group from another place that's again, they've made an agreement with them that it's impossible for other people to replicate, or that they've been selected as the group who would interact with another creature from another dimension, let's say. Just, I'm again postulating, might not be true. But this group did such a thing, and now they've made this gap between them and the rest of humanity. And after that, all technology, all other things that have slowly been drip fed into humanity has been done by them. And that's why, it's very difficult for you to catch up with them. So you would always be on the back foot against, I wouldn't call them an enemy, but an entity such as that, even if it's a group of humans. You would always be on the back foot against them. And it would be very easy for them to dumbfound you and bamboozle you. So, for example, if you do have such a technology that could, let's say travel in an instant, you could appear inside the president's private quarters in the middle of the night while his security team is outside, chit-chatting, standing in front of the door. There was no trigger of any security measures because you instantaneously appeared in his room, and you say to him, look, Prez, right, if you don't toe the line, I'll remove your head and I'll put a different head on there that looks just like you. It'll be a guy walking around who looks just like you, but it ain't you. So, you better do what you said. Something to that effect. It would scare the, crap. I don't want to swear. Yeah, scare the absolute crap out of you, and you would toe the line. I'm not saying that's what happened, but postulating, thinking about it, considering it, to what level is Matt Brown indicating here? Is it just a scientific discovery that separated them? Is it a discovery of another non-human intelligence that's helped this group break away from the rest of us as a control mechanism? Are they at let's say, the whims and desires of this other creature? What does everybody think? How far do you think this goes? Am I taking it too far? Has too many movies affected the way I'm looking at it? Or
can I play it really quick too? I think I got the part here. Let me see real quick.
Your belief
go for it. If you got it, man, play it, bro.
The race for the technology, the understanding of the big secret, is entirely in the hands of people outside the government, and not for the benefit of the public or to protect American national security. It's in some other realm, in some other hands.
I think it's a mix. I think our military, has a long historic involvement in this. So does our intelligence community and our scientific academic community. We have, as a country, allowed ourselves to be penetrated, co-opted, and corrupted by an internationalist force that serves their interests and views nations, peoples as tools and means to an end.
Like a business cabal, international corporations that have no loyalty to any nation, let alone this one.
That's a large part of it. I think we have to go above that too, to start to explain the degree of the level of deception and the level of commitment they've had to maintaining that deception. It's above just monetary gain and power. They're afraid.
Weird. I almost get NHI things, and I've heard that like some of these disclosure people that they're all in on the breakaway civilization, and that they think that they're the ones doing Havana syndrome at times and whatnot. And I've even heard that like a lot of them are into the like shape-shifting reptilian thing, and I kind of got that vibe from this. Like it almost seemed extra human, the way he was describing it. But who knows? That's just my read there.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. That's what I was trying to lead up to get, because my particular specialism of research, I would say, is in general religion, but in specifics, it's Islam. And there are some indications of a breakaway civilization from an Islamic perspective. One such evidence of that is that there are some reports that we found from around the 12th century, whereby one of these guys who made contact, shall we say, with the non-human intelligence was provided a tool. And the description he gave the tool, and by the way, part of his obedience to them, and this is where it gets really strange, guys, but I'm just going to speak open and honest. We know about a lot of people don't think that Epstein situation is linked to the UAP phenomena. Most people would never make such a link, but what I found in this old document was that this particular man, he was encouraged by the non-human intelligence to harm children in the way that we would say Epstein Island-esque situation was, where children were to be, particularly men-on-men action was encouraged by this entity, and in return it would help him become famous and powerful. If you like, this individual, he was one of the rich and famous in his time. That doesn't, you could call him the Hollywood, because you've got to remember the superpower in the 12th century, especially across Europe and North Africa and the Middle East, all the way over to, Asia, were the Muslims. They were the superpower at that time. And they had their individuals who were like the rich and famous and the popular at that time, the poets and in particular the Sufi masters. This particular guy, he was allegedly a Sufi master, and he had become corrupted, and he had been in contact with this non-human intelligence. They called them jinn in that time, or shayateen, or devils, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, he has contact with them, and it encouraged him to harm young boys. And in return, it would do and provide some services for him. And those services include appearing in his form. So it would appear in his form, and it would fly through the sky in his form, and people would think he was able to fly. One of the things this entity gave him, he described it, he said it was a liquid, and over that liquid was glass. And that glass was really smooth and shiny, and he would be able to interact with the jinn through this device. He could see it and it could see him, and it would show him his followers. So he would be able to see his followers through this shiny glass device, and he could ask the entity questions and it would give him answers. So what I determined, and anyone I ask, whenever I describe this thing, what do you think it was that he had? Most people say sounds like a modern smartphone. And if let's say we say, just to make it simple, we say that it was a modern smartphone from the 12th century. You can imagine that if you were to provide such a device, or to show somebody something like that in the 1950s or 1960s, you could really get, especially the military industrial complex, you really get their juices flowing. They would do a lot of different things, and they would be prepared to do a lot of different things to get access to such technology, or how to design it, or how to create it, or how to build it, and so on and so forth. Going back to what we just talked about, the idea of a breakaway civilization, the idea of a shape-shifting as well, is all present in the research that I've done. And that's why I find these, particularly what Matt said, interesting, because this idea exists, but we place it amongst the magicians. We're not talking about the David Blaines and who else is there? Paul Daniels, those type of people. But we're talking about the hardcore, old school magicians of old, who used to support the people like Pharaoh, who were always the advisors, like your John Dee, who used to advise the royal family, back in the day. We would place them as, in our own traditions, it's always been the people in leadership, and then next to them has always been the advisors, the melek, the magicians, the people who have access to a knowledge through the jinn, through this entity. And what I think has happened is that these magicians, these people, still exist to this day, and that their knowledge has been passed down through families. That's why there's a lot of this blood lying and this sort of obsession with who you're born to and where you're from, is linked to this breakaway civilization. And I think that it's those people who are calling the shots, not the people that we know about, it's the people we don't know about, the people who exist in an area so high up that they don't need to interact with anybody to get things done. They just make a statement, and it comes from the very top down. And it seems that that's what Matt was hinting at, something that's all-encompassing, a group that's all-encompassing, and literally don't answer to anybody. And they don't need to answer to anyone, because they can make you disappear, or they can even come in your form. And that's why a lot of people, they talk about this shape shifting and looking like someone else. This is historic. We have historic evidence of such a creature coming in the form of different people, going back over thousands of years. And that's why history has to be considered when talking about the UFO topic, because there's a plethora of information out there that matches identically with ufology, and it's found in religions, and it's found in mythology, and it's found all over the place throughout history. And these are the links that we need to start making now. To really understand who is behind the UFO phenomena, we have to listen to the whistleblowers and then apply it to the history that we know. And that's going to give us a better understanding of what's going on, I think, personally. I've waffled on a lot now, yeah? I might have said a lot of wrong things. So if anyone wants to jump in, if any of you guys out there listening disagree, put your hands up. We want people to talk. This shouldn't be just me waffling on. I want everybody to have a go here. Sam, you're up next. If you could do it, Faruq, if you can add him on. Bismillah.
Bismillah. Hi everyone. Thank you, Faruq, for this good talk. So you just reminded me. I posted something related to what you said about the Epstein connection. It reminds me that when you said that always you will find someone who will work with a magic, and magic with a K, not magic with a C. You'll see even in the past, I remember Rasputin was one of the people who was very close to royal families in Russia, or even almost, it's all over the place, and it seems like it's happening again. So what I came to find out also from what I looked into, what happens is many of the people who go probably to black programs or special programs like MK Ultra and stuff, these kids get also not only subjected to psychedelic drugs, they also probably get affected into something. When this type of trauma, it's what causes these people, the elite ones, to get access to whatever they want, if it's tech, if it's power, if it's music, like the PDG gangs. These people get lyrics, just like the poets in Arabia. These people get also lyrics and music. And in return, the victims become what we call now the experiencers. You find them all over Reddit and Twitter now that almost have no voice, even though there's whistleblowers. The experiencers are the people which are usually get ignored about what's actually happening with the phenomena, because that's where it leaves the idea that it's things in the sky and it comes to things in your bedroom. But unfortunately, the experiencers, which many of them are actually victims of a high trauma. It could be a sexual trauma, it could be a different type of trauma, but the amount is big, and it seems like that many of the victims of these Epstein people or others could be even used as psionic assets, where I realize they're looking for them right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's unfortunate, but it's always been the case that this particular entity, this phenomena, loves to harm human beings. And it's not often talked about because you've got two competing narratives that arise out of this. On one side, you've got the people who have what they consider like a majority positive, a positive experience, where they say, they were kind to me, they made me feel euphoric. One great example of that is matey boy from that what they called against Skywatchers, right? And he said that he had a very positive emotional experience while flying the helicopter, and he said, that he felt that what he experienced was very loving, and almost, I get what he
said two elements were important. One of them that it was feminine, and the second one he said, I felt like this is the best spirit that ever possessed me.
You guys talking about Jig Barber, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good old Jakey boy. Yeah, so he effectively, his experience, he painted it as widely positive, although he himself said, like they're not always positive. But then you got the second, a bit more on the extreme side, is Greer Greer going with the old, all of them are positive, and the vast majority of the negative ones are from humans pretending to be non-human intelligence. And he blamed all abduction cases. And I know Matt Brown didn't really talk about that. He didn't go into, abductions or anything like that. So we are going on a little tangent here, but just to mention it, Greer saying that all abduction cases being, widely, he's blaming the CIA and covert aspects of the American intelligence community. I don't think that's the case at all, particularly when we've got abduction cases dating back, 1,000+ years, almost identical to the abduction cases of today. People becoming disorientated, being pulled through solid objects. We've got reports of that going back 1,000+ years. So unless the CIA are doing it, in the past, abducting people, I honestly think it's, a ridiculous connotation. And then there's people who say they're widely, negative. And I would probably be more on that side. Even if you do feel it's positive, I'd say that, when we deal with animals, certain animals, we feed them, before we inject them, just to get their mind off of what we're doing. And it may be platonic. There may be not necessarily an evil intent behind it, but there's a scientific purpose. So we just, give them a Werther's original, and we'll, abduct them afterwards and do whatever we want with them. Just
give them some treats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jump in, Imran. Bismillah.
Yeah, no, this is brilliant, man. I think this comes up over and over again. You get two camps, right? You've got those that are pro NHI experiences, and it's all amazing and it's phenomenal and it's all love and good things. And then you have the negative aspects of it. But I think from a psychological standpoint, and from a sort of religious or philosophical academic aspect as well, these events will be categorized as religious experiences in academia, right? So these are a form of religious experience. So one thing to keep in mind psychologically, when someone has an experience out of the norm, so as they're living their daily lives for years, day in, day out, and there's an experience that happens which literally is unlike anything anyone has ever experienced in their life, it's going to have a profound impact on them, right? And in some cases, depending on the person's disposition, just because they've had a phenomenal experience, they can overlook the darkness of that experience. Just for the fact that they had a special experience, they can overlook and not pay attention to how bad. So, for example, a good example of this is the guy who wrote Communion, Whitley Strieber.
Yeah,
he's a very good example of this. I mean, it's evident that his experience have been predominantly negative and traumatic, yet he doesn't want this to stop. He's made it evidently clear in his podcast. He wants it to continue. He enjoys it almost in a sadistic way. So I think there's that element. And then you have people like Stephen Greer, who are hell-bent on establishing that it's all good and anything negative is the government or it's human beings that replicate this tech and are, taking on the disguise of these beings and abducting people. So there's that element. And I think Greer, and this is also interesting, because if we understand, and again, well-documented, Valet and others, John Keel, many others, who have highlighted that there is a deceptive element to this phenomenon, the NHI. If these non-human intelligence have a deceptive element, deception is a part, trickery is a part of it, then you cannot logically trust even a good experience with NHI. Because it could simply be the case that you're initially being given good experiences to lead you up to something negative. There's no way of denying or disproving that. So considering that, but also that it's a phenomenal experience, it's very easy to see how people could fall into this and just believe it to be good. I mean, Bledsoe is a very good example. If you follow his story, these beings and entities would appear to him in a particular form until it got to the point where he was about to give up on these beings, where his family was turning against him, his church was turning against him, and he was like, I've had enough. And at that point, there was a shift in appearance. Then these beings, or this NHI, took on the form of the divine feminine and appeared to him again, just so they don't lose him, And this is a very interesting, so we see that in his case, in Bledsoe's case, the NHI, this phenomenon, takes on an appeasing form a good form to Bledsoe so they can continue that communication with him. So I think there's a lot going on here that could be unpacked from a psychological perspective as well. But I just wanted to share that and highlight, because I know some people very easily fall into, oh, it's all good. But people need to be careful.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree with you, because I think we have seen historically that there's a trend of these NHIs, portraying themselves as angelic. But you know what? We have a few hands, so we'll start with Arcadian because he had his hand first. But Sam and Red Panda, can you guys please hold your thoughts? All right, Arcadian, go ahead.
Jinns obviously manipulate every part of our society, but I wonder how humans manipulate their society. Like they can watch us, but we can't watch them if we look at all the evidence throughout the history, right? So it would have manipulated their literature, science, their culture in a big part, right?
Yeah, I think that's something that would require another insider to talk about, because I would say the phenomena itself, to just to give us all just a quick analogy. I think that the way that we look into, the atomic world or something like that, our interaction with it is very much that we see and we're able to understand it through experimentation or instrumentation, right? And likewise, we don't possess, as far as we're aware, we don't possess the instrumentation or the scientific ability to test and measure their world to a degree that we can find anything else. So we're on the back foot, and we are at the mercy of them explaining to us information. And because we're getting mixed messages, and because different experiences get, like we talked about Whitley Strieber, but good old John Mack, his book, The Abduction, is pretty much full of cases of absolute I couldn't finish it. It was horrific, some of the things that people were going through, and it really, really put a toll on my heart. I got like halfway through and I was just hearing story after story of absolute horrific events that a lot of people would play off as just dreams or visions that you had. Didn't really happen. But Mac knew different, and he understood that these people were really traumatized. And, when you have that as part of the data set to understand them, and you mix it in with Striver and you mix it in with everybody else, it is very difficult to paint an understanding of what benefit we have to their society. Why is it that they're doing this to us? And therefore, what like we do things in the microbial world with medicines and with certain accelerants in the body to make it do X, Y, Z to make us feel healthier. We interfere with their world, but to them, we don't know how, because they're not conscious as far as we're aware, we don't know what effect that has on their society. And B, the effect on their society has on us is huge. So that's why we force these sort of situations in a microbial fashion. To what extent are we affecting their world? And to what extent is their efforts towards bettering their life through affecting our own? This is something I think that we're pretty much never going to get to the bottom of, because we don't have the instrumentation to understand what's going on. We'll go with Red Panda now. I know you had your hand up, and then we'll go Sam afterwards. Unless you want to add something else, Arcadian, go for it.
Yeah, so I think if these jinns provide us information, we can never trust them, because they're not good. They're trying to manipulate us. If we be honest, looking at all the evidence throughout the history, right? They're not good. They're trying to manipulate us, so we cannot trust even a single bit of information among them. We might.
I agree. If the source is from them, if they're telling us it, I don't think that we're in a position where we can trust it, purely based on the fact that where there's no way to verify it. And I think it places us at such a disadvantage that it's kind of like I think it puts us in danger to trust anything that they say. I've got some more things I want to talk about on that, Arcadian. Can we go to Red Panda next, and then we'll come back to you in a bit, Arcadian? Yeah. Is that all right? Go up next, Red Panda?
Yes.
What was I going to say? I kind of forgot, but I'm with you on a lot of this stuff. Like, you can't. I personally don't trust any of these things because there's always like an element of deceit. Even like you said, even if it feels good or whatever, like they know what they're doing. They know that they're kind of on an unequal playing field when we're interacting with them, and they like choose to lean into it. And it looks like they like love to create little religions all around the world, and almost like they need it too, right? You're saying like, what do they need from us? That's something I've come across, and I don't know if it's in the Islamic stuff, but that like some of these entities, right? Like they need people to believe in it, and it like makes them more like real and like manifested and whatnot. There's a girl named Tracy Twyman, and she died under mysterious circumstances around the Isaac Cappy stuff, but she has really interesting research into like Baphomet and Knights Templar and like the formation of the monetary system, like stuff like that. Not really like UFO stuff, but it's all kind of related. And she researched a bunch of channeling stuff over the years, and like that was a common thing she came across, was that like all the channeled beings always wanted like more people to like believe in them. So yeah.
Interesting. We've actually got some stuff we could talk about on the Knights Templar side of things. That's definitely a fascinating area because there are some reports about what they discovered and what they found and what they were doing to get close to these entities. And I would say from our perspective, as you mentioned, that's, you know, the religions, and I'd say every religion, in fact, has been affected by these entities, and maybe some of even the origins of them are from them directly. But there is a way to differentiate between what is godly, so to speak, i.e. from the creator. And I don't know everyone's position on that, and perhaps, you know, now or perhaps today isn't the discussion for that. We'll maybe open another space another time to go into that side of things. But most certainly they affect pretty much every religion, and they've meddled with and put their stamp on different sects and cults around the world. You don't even have to go as far as back as, you know, Jack Parsons and what he was getting up to. And I know you got a lot to say about that, Imran, and the effect that had on ufology in particular. After he did that strange ritual, there was a lot of UFO. The UFO wave pretty much started thereafter. So you were next, I think, Sam, and then we'll go to Imran, and then we'll go back to you, Arcadian.
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, so it's fascinating. Red Panda mentioned that they need to be mentioned a lot more as to manifest or to exist even. So that reminds me of the American Gods TV show, which was talking about the American gods, the old pagan gods fighting with the new ones, the technological ones, and the more they have followers and prayers, the more it gives them power to exist and to manipulate and deceive people around the world. Mentioning the
Sam, you gone mute, mate. I don't know if you clicked it by accident.
No, someone muted everyone. Says everyone got muted.
Oh yeah, maybe that might be my big fat finger, mate.
Right.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so speaking of the lady creating different religions, I realized this phenomena has been happening a lot. So in Egypt, so it's known in ancient Egypt. It's not only ancient Egypt was only a small periods, about 7,000 years. So different cults and different religions, we all see it as all ancient Egypt, but different ones has different feminine deity as the head of it. Also, the Baha'i faith sounded very similar to Chris Bledsoe's story, where the creator of the Baha'i faith was in a dungeon, exiled, and on the brink of death and brink of despair. That's where he got this phenomena, seeing a woman in the sky flying, and there is little women around her and he got convinced that she is the manifestation of the divine will or the divine himself in the world. And that reminded me there is I was reading a book speaking about the Antichrist for Tabari. He was a very known Islamic scholar. I'm sorry, Al-Qurtubi. He's a known Islamic scholar. So in this book, there was saying in a small part, I just found it 2 days ago. It says near the end times, there is a woman that will show up from the waters, from the seas, and she will call people to herself, and everyone who will go to her will be as if he's disbelieved of God, or like he will be one of that going to the hellfire straight away. I will share it with you guys later because this is very important. It's a very known book, and maybe many people dismiss it. At the same time, I found in the Old Testament, in Zakariah's visions, he had a vision of seeing a woman sitting inside a basket, where an angel told him this woman represents godlessness, or sin, or all the evil in the world, or wickedness, and she got based in Babel, and he told him there will be a house built to her in Babylon, and then in the future she will come from over there. So connecting these two narrations, one in the past with Zakariah, and the new one with the Prophet Muhammad that I just found, it shows that something was exiled and will show up in the future from the water, have something to do with a divine feminine that represents wickedness around the world. Yeah, I just hope to share that, and it's just something I just found 2 days ago.
Sure, mate. Just to have a little fun with it, what if the woman that was blurted out in that interview with Matt Brown was the woman in question, you know? It's only a joke, sorry. I'm only making about. Who was after that? I think it was you, Imran. You were next to speak, brother.
No, yeah. So this is a very interesting topic. I know we've veered off a bit from the initial, but I guess it's fine. It's good getting everyone's thoughts on this stuff. It's very interesting. But I think one of the things that's been established, and if I'm hearing everyone correctly, is and I would agree with this, is that there is a huge historical precedence. Whether you look at it through religious history, or if you look at it from history in general, with beings or entities that some humans have been, and especially the elite, have been in contact with. There's a very interesting book. It's called The Myth of Disenchantment by Jason A. Josephson Storm. It's an extremely interesting book because what he does, one of the things he does, is he covers the history of modernity and some of the leading figures who, on the surface, and I think I mentioned this last week as well, were pushing people towards materialism and away from, anything supernatural and the divine. Yet at the same time, behind closed doors, they were engaging in occult practices, trying to make contact with beings and entities and all of this type of stuff, because they believed that they would get inspiration from these beings. This trend is obviously followed through to our times. Jack Parsons, obviously going back a bit, exactly the same thing. Aleister Crowley, exactly the same thing. They wanted to make contact with these beings for some sort of benefit.
Sorry to interrupt briefly, but there's been a lot of accusations against the people who run the Large Hadron Collider in Europe that they are involved in and have been videoed partaking in, occult practices and worshipping of idols. And these are people who are allegedly staunch atheistic scientists who are trying to only understand the world and how it works. So very bizarre. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, and it's true. You see, and NASA's a very good example. I think D.W. Pasulka has done an excellent job in highlighting how they still conduct rituals even before every launch. Their badges that they have occult symbology. And there's a rabbit hole that goes quite deep. So there's definitely this link. Parsons definitely was getting inspiration from his contact with these beings or entities and the rituals that he was doing in the deserts. So there is definitely a precedence here. Now, it's not a stretch of the imagination to say, well, maybe some factions of the government, these dark factions that we've been discussing, are doing the very same thing because they have been tipped off, or whether historically or through other people, that making contact with these NHI would lead to some form of technology that they can retrieve or be given or gifted by these beings. So they are chasing this. I really believe that they're chasing this and they're trying to attain this. And I think this is why other groups like the Collins Elite are aware of this to some extent, and they're warning against this because they come from a more traditional Christian perspective. So it's very interesting, the dynamic here.
Yeah, I like that, man. I think we should, perhaps for next week, we could get into a bit more of the occult and things like that, and explore that a little bit. Maybe that's next week's discussion, unless something big comes out from the next interview. I think that'll be the next one, and that does tie in with what Matt Brown was indicated, that there is a pervasive, undisclosed entity that's part human that has infiltrated every aspect of life and is controlling. Overtly and covertly, what everybody knows about in terms of reality. It's controlled from the universities down, which is about as high up as you get in terms of investigation of reality and what it really is, the scientific university. So let's just jump with you, Eric. You got your hand up, bro. Sorry, man.
Hey, how's it going, gentlemen? Can you guys hear me, ladies?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Hey, how's it going? So I guess my 2 cents on this, and it kind of goes down this road where I've been going lately with some of these people who espouse their prowess for remote viewing, and not just remote viewing, but specifically in regards to remote viewing the future. And I'm kind of 2 minds about the whole concept of this, because my general thinking after talking to many of these people, directly asking them like, you can remote view the future. Yes. Next question. Do you drive a Bentley? No. Do you own a plane? No. Can you review some lottery numbers for me? No. Where are you right now? In a van down by the river, kind of thing like that. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so if there is to be any information gained by opening yourself up to CE5, spirits, jinn, whatever it may be, it doesn't ever seem under almost any circumstance that it's for the benefit of the person receiving that information. And it's almost exclusively to their detriment. And it seems like, when I say to their detriment, I'm not meaning in every instance. I'm meaning some of the information, or they may receive some benefit from some part of the interaction, but that part of the interaction is only to lure them kind of into deeper waters for some ulterior motive that they may not even see coming. It's some kind of 4D chess kind of thing they're just playing with people who, through their own free will, allow it and seek it out. It seems like. What's your guys' take on that kind of take on, what's going on with a lot of these things?
I'll jump in on that one. Dude, you're pretty much aligned with. We've discussed this in private over the years, actually, these type of things, and you're pretty much in line with our position, and in particular with the Islamic position. That even the prophets themselves, going back to Noah, Abraham, Moses, all of the prophets, Jesus, and so on and so forth, they themselves said that if we knew the unseen, if we knew what was to come next exactly, they would never face any hardship or difficulty. This is a refutation of anyone who makes such a claim. Even the prophets themselves, who we believe, as from our religious perspective, that they were receiving information from the one who is the owner of time and the creator of the beginning and the end. And God being outside of time means that to him it was all one moment. Beginning all the way to the end of times has already happened to the Lord of the heavens and earth. So, he knows everything's going to occur, but those who are receiving information from him, who are receiving revelation from him, like Abraham, Moses, so on, they themselves never viewed that they had knowledge of what's to come next exactly. They weren't, let's say they weren't privy to all information, and therefore if they were, they would have been incredibly wealthy. They would have never faced any hardship. They would have been able to avoid anything difficult coming their way. But the reality is they weren't, and this applies directly to the people who engage with and contact the phenomena. And as you mentioned, Eric, man, these people are being misled and misguided, and they end up. I'll give you a quick example, because I know there's quite a few hands that have popped up. It seems like you've picked a lovely little topic to dive into there, Eric. I will say this. As you mentioned, if this remote viewing practice was as accurate as they try to present to the rest of us, for sure, like you said, they would have done so for their own personal benefit. and in particularly, they would have done so to, and America would have never faced any of the difficulties that they've faced, in particular the 9/11 attack and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's why I think that a lot of these things are presented to us in a way that they were accidents, but the knowledge was known not because of remote viewing, but because it was a planned event and so on and so forth. But truly strange, or let's say unknown events that would never happen. Why? With the remote view, they didn't know what was coming next. Let me say this to you. Imagine it's 2002 or 2001, whoever it is, and you are tasked with remote viewing Iraq, and you're remote viewing Iraq, and whatever this ability you claim you have shows you weapons of mass destruction. So what do? You go to the officer who tasked you with such a thing and you say, look, I've remote viewed, and these guys, they've got very powerful weaponry and they're preparing to launch it actually. I've remote viewed and I've seen that they're going to launch it against America and Israel and Russia and everyone. Everyone's going to get a lick of this. So what happens is it goes to the big man at the top, old Georgie Bush. And Georgie Bush is told that we've got this secret program, right? And George knew anyway. He was read into some of it allegedly. Who knows? And he's told that we've had a prediction, we've had a prophecy, right? And God has given us a prophecy and revealed to us information of the future, and that we're going to be attacked by weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, right? So that's what happens. And George goes on the TV, and you can look it up. George himself, he claimed that God himself told him to invade Iraq. That's what he claimed. So these illicit remote viewing program potentially could have been the origin of the invasion of Iraq. And we all know now, in hindsight, that there was no weapons of mass destruction. But of course, whether that's linked back to the remote viewing program or not, it doesn't really matter, because they did invade Iraq. There was nothing there, but they did find a whole lot of gold. They found bags of it, truckloads of gold. So, they did well in the end of it. But the point being is that you're never going to learn about the failures of these groups, and the failures in particular that led to people's deaths. Yeah, but what you are going to hear about is the things that are good and positive about it. Like, and look at this. Another thing, there's allegedly bases on the moon. There's allegedly bases on Mars. They are ancient, but they've been covered up by dust and whatever. These are things that you're never going to really be able to verify. And anyone who has any sufficient amount of money to send something over there, they're not going to go and look for bases. Yeah, they're going to look for something that's going to bring them profit. Unless somebody remote views bags of gold on Mars, nobody's going up there. You know what I'm saying? So I really like that, Eric. Sorry, I waffled on again. Let's go to Berserk. I can't really see your name there, but Berserk dude is that an apple with a green apple? Go for it, Berserk.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's actually an avocado. Yeah, strangely enough. But I've got something. Something of a suggestion, and then something to. I think it's in Brother Imran's ballpark related to that. So probably he's the most knowledgeable in that area. I've been thinking about the Surah Tariq, basically chapter 28, I believe, verse 12. Could you please just if you just search it up and then read it for us, and then explain how is it related to the topic that we're discussing, the Immaculate Constellation, Surah Tariq. Probably it talks about and that's why I understand, like parallel universe and stuff. And then with regards to the topic of jinn, the suggestion is there's a Swedish-based Kurdish journalist. He writes in Kurdish mostly about jinns and stuff. I believe there is a Kurdish brother in here who can obviously help out with that. His name is Mr. Makwan Karim. So I believe it will be very interesting if you can come on the space and participate.
Mention about what you were discussing, the exegesis of the Quran in regards to the verse in Surah Talaq, the divorce. That's a different topic, and one we'll cover. We have covered as well in our discussions on Imran's channel, the podcast that we've done. But these are other things as well we want to dive into on the IREP channel itself. So these are a bit more technical, and maybe not for everybody in the channel right now. But essentially in that verse, it just talks about the existence. Well, Allah says that He is He who has created the seven heavens, and of the earth the like of them. Okay, so there's some speculation to be discussed about what does it mean, the like of them? Are there other earths around this universe, or does it actually mean that different dimensions of this particular earth? But God is telling us in this verse that there are other worlds that He's created and other heavens that He's created. So this universe is the lowest heaven. This is the lowest of them, and the one above it is, in comparison to size, according to the hadith of the Prophet, is like a ring in a desert. So this universe, if you were to place it inside the ring that goes on your finger, so you imagine that size, right? And you were to take that ring and you throw it into one of the deserts, that's, whichever one you like, right? That is the significance of size difference between this universe, which is the one, and this universe, what it means from the Islamic perspective, is that which the stars are in. So anything you see there's a star, so you point your telescope and look, travel billions of years light does before it reaches us from some of these stars. That is the lowest heaven. So this heaven, if you put it in a ring and threw it in a desert, the one above it is the comparison of size to the next one. And that particular ratio of ring in a desert goes up 7 times. There's 7 of these heavens. That's the perspective we have from an Islamic perspective. And so there's multiple universes, and there's multiple earths. And so, there's a discussion to be had what actually means multiple earths. We know there's many more than 7 earths or similar to these earths across this universe. But what it could also mean is that there's different dimensions of this earth that we don't really see. One could argue that the atomic world could perhaps be one of those earths. One could argue that the microbial world is one of those earths, or one could argue that in particular what we're able to interact with is just one of them. So everything from the atomic to the quantum to the microbial and so on and so forth is one aspect of this earth, and that there's other aspects of this earth that we don't know about. And then in this particular verse, and in other verses as well, it mentions that there's what's between the heavens and the earth. So there's even an existence in between the heavens and the earth that we don't know about. But God is, of course, competent, and Allah knows all things. God knows all things. So just to make that clear to everyone out there, just because, I don't want to redirect this conversation away from exactly what we're talking about, but definitely that's a bit more of a technical discussion that we'll probably do another time. But Imran, it was directed to you, bro, so I will hand it over to you.
No, bro, I think you answered it well, bro, and I agree. We could probably do something on this. To be honest, there's gonna be loads of topics to unpack, bro, as time goes by, God willing. But like you said, there's a level of interpretation with some of these verses as well, which need to be discussed. But it is interesting. I think this is a nice segue back to our topic, which is, and again, from our perspective, there's room within Islam to account to make the claim of extraterrestrial life, or ET, beings from other planets. Within the Islamic tradition, there are other verses or verses which you can study and you can collate and understand that it's a possibility that there are other creatures or beings that God has created in other parts of the universe. So it's not, from a theological standpoint, it's not a necessity to try and explain this phenomenon as the jinn. We don't have to do this. There's no constraints. But we have interpreted it as the jinn because we believe that the evidence strongly suggests that. And that's essentially what we've been discussing over the past couple of years, and what we're discussing in these spaces as well. And when you look at the evidence, I mean, it's almost a one-to-one match with what we refer to as the jinn, historically speaking, or religiously speaking, and what this NHI is and what we know about it today through research. And also going back to Eric's point, it's a very interesting discussion. I don't know if you want to carry on with it, Faruq, but just a few points on that. Is that, again, when you look at the jinn and the interaction with magicians or people that invoke them throughout history, it's a very interesting dynamic. They always are willing to give the human beings that engage them something of benefit that those humans want. However, it's always at a cost or a price. So they always want something in return. And normally what they want is far greater than whatever has been given to the human being. So they always get the better end of the deal, basically. And also the information they give, again from an Islamic perspective, some of it's true, but it's truth mixed in with falsehood. So there's a lot of lies, and they're mixed in with some truths. Now there's a whole discussion, bro, Faruq, I don't know if you want to go into it, as to how the jinn access this information of future events. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to pass that back to you, Faruq. But so there is a whole sort of cosmology, if you like, of how the jinn access this information from different realms, or bit snippets of it, which is mixed in with falsehood. And that's what makes, and we see this with oracles, with magicians historically as well. Some of the things they would say will be true, but a lot of the other things they would say will be false. And that, again, is telling of what the jinn do, or how much access they really have. So I thought that was very interesting, that part of the discussion. But anyway, back to you guys.
Thanks. I want to go back to Eric, because you were the one who raised that wonderful point. We did get a little derailed there, but hopefully we kind of like addressed some of what you mentioned. If I see your hand up, Eric, jump in, bro.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, you addressed it perfectly. Yeah, I'm a just a straight monotheistic Christian, Bible believing, non-denominational Christian. And so, I think we generally kind of, from the Abrahamic standpoint, will land, in a lot of the same areas. And, I just think it's so funny because, just a little tangent, when you see these things looking, whether you call them jinn or they're just, whatever random thing you allowed yourself to be influenced by, I almost think of them like spiritual drug dealers. They're like giving you that first hit for free. You know what I mean? But once they got you, then they got you. And now, that's it, right? I mean, you're getting your crack from them. The crack is good crack, right? It's the best crack. That's what keeps you on the hook, right? You have to keep getting that next little thing, and you just see it. I think that drug dealer junkie relationship is a good analogy. I think, that's never healthy, right? Over long terms in these kind of situations, right? So anyways, it's an interesting way to look at it, I think.
No, I think you're right. I think that especially like ego plays a huge part in it. Once somebody has an interaction with them, and I know that there's people in this room who have had interactions with non-human intelligence, Muslims as well, seen some very powerful things with their own eyes right in front of them, and that can be very addictive. Not only is it, let's say, you do have a level of shock, because it's one thing reading it in a book and believing it with your tongue, but when you experience something phenomenal, it does alter your perspective on reality, and you can go one way or the other. And oftentimes, people who have experiences, I remember many, many years ago, there was a young lady who had become misguided because she kept having dreams. And in these dreams, angels, as she understood them, would come to her, and they essentially relieved from her any of the duties that are mandatory in Islam, or whether Christianity, it could be anybody, but the duties of religion, the character and so on and so forth, as well as the actual physical practices of religion. They kept telling him they've been lifted from her. She doesn't have these obligations anymore because she's so pious. So that ego feeding cost her a lot. And she ended up going into, I don't know if people remember, it was kind of like Spaces. I forgot what it was called now. Oh, not MySpace. What was that? I don't know if you guys remember it. It was Pal Talk. That was it. Pal Talk back in the day. She used to come on to Pal Talk, and she would, express her new idea and new understanding of how things are going to be. I felt really sorry for her because she was having really genuine visions and experiences that misled her, should we say, towards being inactive in the goodness that comes from religion. People can say whatever they like, but religion does create a what's the right word to use here? It does create a necessity of the human being who believes in it to abide by a set of moral conditions that, one shouldn't steal, one should tell the truth, one should be generous with his money and donate to charity, and so on and so forth. These really good characteristics that many humans have innately anyway. But just it provides a rewardable situation where doing these things, is pleasing to the one who created you. So once you start removing these obligations, then there's almost no necessity for you to be good anymore. And it kind of feels like that, going back to what you mentioned, Eric, there's almost a social engineering aspect to what these individuals perceive, right, when they have these experiences. So they come out of it and they're saying, look, we should be like this, or we should be like, oh, we shouldn't be like this anymore. And I'll give you one great example. Today, if you've got kids, I don't know if you have, Eric, or anyone in this room who's got children. I remember a couple of years ago, there was like this trend, I think they call it, where you would have to eat a big spoonful of, cayenne pepper, what was it?
Cinnamon,
yeah. And there's grown men putting this big spoon of cinnamon in their mouth and coughing their guts up. And it was the cool thing to do. There was another trend where people were getting in their cars, starting to drive, then getting out of the car and dancing. And it caused so many issues. People crashed and people got run over by their own cars. Absolutely redacted behavior, to use that word instead of the one I want to use word. Absolutely ridiculous behavior. Socially engineered through an app that's telling you it's cool to do it. So when you lift it to the next level where something phenomenal occurs, you can almost get people to do anything you want. Appear to someone, float in the room, and tell them that, you've been chosen for a very special thing. It's going to change them completely. And then when you mix into that people of incredible power, high up into the positions of authority in particular, the military industrial complex, in, let's say, an aerospace laboratory, where not one, but 2, 3, 4 people have a very similar experience. It's going to create not only a social engineering environment for those 4 people, but they're in the position to affect the rest of us. And when you just lift it up to the next level and higher up you go, the more power and ability they have to socially engineer the rest of us. And I kind of feel like that's what Matt Brown was hinting at, that they're so high up that if they want, for argument's sake, if they want to push let's say a transgender agenda, a global transgender agenda, and they want it to be pushed on the internet and in the corporate environment, all at the same time, they have the power to do so. And I kind of felt like that's what happened over the last 4 years. There was some push from the corporate world that was so powerful that all the advertising agencies, all of the social media companies, all the big tech companies, all of the corporate companies, all at the same time started to make this as a number one issue. It nearly tanked the Bud Light or whatever it was, this beer company in America, because they started joining into that. And the regular folk, like the guys down south, not that I'm endorsing drinking alcohol here, but I'm just saying that it got to the point where, even companies that are traditionally masculine, so to speak, started to adopt these ideas, and it caused a bit of a backlash. But my point is that such an entity could do so, could push such an agenda. And one last thing I want to mention before we go to everyone else, because I am waffling on here, is the Russian aspect of what Matt Brown discussed. This entity, whatever it is, has got Russia keeping its mouth quiet. It's got China keeping quiet about what it knows. It's got Europe, and in particular Britain. It's got Australia, Canada, America. Everybody in the world is keeping their lips closed and their throat tight on this issue. And Matt said that the Immaculate Constellation server, the document he managed to pull off it, and that he managed to read through, and we only know part of it, he hasn't divulged all of it. And one of the slides was a picture, and he believed it was taken by an American sub that was probably in the vicinity. And on that picture, on that evidence that he saw, on that data that he saw, it was what he referred to as an ARV, or what the document, should we say, the document called it an ARV, whether that be an alien reproduction or anomalous reproduction, or whatever the acronym meant. And it was above a Russian ship. And he said it seemed like the Russians were aware of it going to be there at that time, and they were there to discuss of it. Does that mean that that entity, that breakaway civilization, is also controlling Russia and China and everyone else, or is it the entity in and of itself? Is that the aspect of obedience that everybody is listening to? Russia does what it tells them to do. China does what it tells them to do. America does what it tells them to do. Why? Because they're all like the kid who sees the cookie jar. He's doing what mum says so he can get a cookie. So everybody's doing what they're told, and everybody's afraid of the power of this entity, and therefore they do what they're told because they want to appease and please it. Yeah, either through fear or through hope of receiving some, blessed piece of technology from them as they view it, or is it a human entity that each individual group, like America has their own group, Russia have their own group, who are up there and in contact with this entity, and they're the ones pulling the shots? Or is it one? Is it a global group? Is it one group who mixed up of Russians, Americans, and Europeans, and Australians, and so on and so forth, who all came together and made an agreement that we're going to do whatever this thing says, or we're the ones in control of this thing? Or I don't know. There's a lot to be mentioned. I've just gone on a little tangent there, guys. Sorry about that, but yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because Matt did mention it, and it does make us ponder and wonder what is the mechanism they're using of control? Is it the entity themselves, or are they manipulating a small group of individuals of power within Russia, America, and so on and so forth, or have a group of humans under the guise of the UN back in the day, who knows, came together and made the decision? Or did we have a Valiant Thor type individual come back in the 1960s, as is claimed by some? I'm not sure. I don't really take a position on that story, whether it's true or not. But Valiant Thor, back in the late 50s, early 60s, who allegedly went around the world making agreements with world governments, and he claimed to be from Venus, and that he was, from an advanced society of humans who lived on Venus, or human-like entities. What does everyone think about that? Is this even worthy of discussion? I know it's a little bit out there, but it does tie in with Matt Brown and the Immaculate Constellation. So, Eric, I see your hand up, bro. I don't know if it was because it's glitched out, or you can jump in, bro.
No, I was just going to say I apologize. It's been a great space. I have to run. But one of the things I was thinking that I kind of, has been occurring to me, and it came up when you were speaking earlier about this kind of like line of narrative that's being pushed, and where is it coming from? And it seems like there's also this other very interesting dual track I wish I had time to hang out and kind of get into, where I feel like there's also a narrative, or not a narrative, but like some kind of giving of okay to not deal with objective reality. So like, they're trying to say, look, you recognize base objective reality. I mean, I don't know if it's base reality, but whatever objective reality means to you, like, simple, basic, common sense things, hey, it's okay to not accept that. Maybe, chocolate tastes like vanilla. Maybe that's what it, so it kind of blurs the lines of objective reality while they're kind of having this coordinated narrative they can kind of push to fill that void. I don't know. It's interesting. Something I need to probably want to think about later. But anyways, thank you guys for having a great space, and see you out there.
Peace out. Eric, what did you think of the audio of that thing? Were you cringing at thought of you?
Oh, dude, I couldn't listen to it, man. I can't listen to that stuff. There's Serafati coughing and hacking, and Elizondo sound like he's down in the underneath the ocean in his skiff. He's in the underwater skiff giving the thing. I mean, I can't listen to that stuff, dude. Anyways, you guys have a great one, man. I'll see you guys out there later.
I missed that. What was that about the Elizondo thing? Someone enlighten me. Have I missed something? I know he did
that. The UAP Disclosure Fund event they had, where Lou showed the picture, which stole the show, but the audio mixing was kind of bad. But it's okay. Mixing audio, honestly, is really hard. But yeah. Did you catch that at all? It's been a busy week in UFO land.
I haven't seen it. Do you know why? It was brought to my attention that he pulled out some picture of a giant 100-foot or 100-meter UFO. and I didn't see it because I've been really busy at work this week, man. I've been to Scotland twice, and for those of you who know, traveling from London to Scotland's like a 600-700 mile journey up and back. So I've done that a couple of times this week, and I'm just absolutely battered. So I'm behind the curve, if you like. But what was it about? Like, give me the details briefly, because
So briefly, it was basically it was pretty much the typical characters. We had Avi Loeb, Chris Mellon, Tim Gallaudet, Lou was the host and MC, and then I think like Burchett on the Congress side, you had Burchett there, Burleson, Luna, and they were just basically like talking to them. Going into it, it seemed like it was more like trying to get the scientific community more engaged in like the institutional scientific community, like National Science Foundation and whatnot. And they had NASA people there. They had Mike Gold. They had this one girl who I still have to watch her thing that I heard was really interesting. But yeah, then Lou showed this like photo out of nowhere and like basically stole the whole thunder from the show. And like literally, if you type in UFO on Google right now, it's like every article is about his debunked UFO, and none of them are really about they're mentioning the hearing. They're like UFO shown at congressional hearing debunked. It's like every article. But yeah,
it kind of feels like someone's lining up what we would call a penalty in football, where it's just like Lou sets the ball up and then he just lets everybody come and score a goal off it, against him. It's a bit bizarre, isn't it? And the people we want to hear from is like for me personally, the one person I want to hear from is David Grush. Since he made his revelations, he hasn't really done much. And the last picture I saw of him, geezer looked rough, man. He had his beard had grown, and I like the beard personally. Yeah, it looked good on him. He just looked rough up, man. And it's someone like him I want to hear from, because he had a lot to say, and then he's disappeared off the face. I don't want to hear from Lou anymore. He's not in there anymore, and he pretty much says the same thing over and over again. Disclosure's a process. We got to work at this. It's going to take time, and that's about it. He doesn't really say anything else. And then I don't know what to think of that. Like all the people you mentioned are the people who have got question marks next to their name. For me personally, Luna and so on and so forth. Those people, I'm not denying that they have some sort of level of passion towards trying to get to the truth, but I just
we don't know all their motives.
Sorry, say again?
We don't know all their motives and whatnot. Like she's from Clearwater, Florida, which is like the Scientology headquarters, and there's various people from her life who said that she practices witchcraft. I thought you might.
It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me.
And I do, Faruq, one thing I did, mention, while you guys were talking about Lou Elizondo, he was one of the people that was okay to mention as per, Matt Brown, right? Which is quite strange, because he might be, this is just my opinion, he might be working with the system, basically, the government. Maybe I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, I think he is. He may be some sort of level of sanctioned disclosure, or at least a group of the insiders have got him as sanctioned disclosure, and then other individuals are rogue disclosure. People who are speaking out of line and going too far with it. We got a narrative that we're building here. It's all social engineering, though. Whatever way you look at it, these guys are building the narrative how they want it to be built. They're drip feeding information, and even the technological aspect. One thing I like about George Knapp and what he's done with the little crew that he's got, he brought forward Lukatsky. And in that book, Initial Revelations, I found it fascinating. I'd like to hear more from Lukatsky. I'd like to hear more from those side of the group. But Lou and the other guys have there's kind of been a bit of a separation gone on here. And you've got the original UAP task force crew on one side. You got Lou, who was allegedly part of that under whatever position that he held, whether that was for I don't know exactly what position he held in the UAP task force, but he's gone kind of one way. And then George Knapp, let's just make it simple, George Knapp and Lukatsky and them lot are kind of over this side, and it's kind of odd, isn't it? Just pondering on it, like. Yeah, so go on, Red. I'm thinking out loud sort of here, but go for it, Red.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I feel like, factionalizing, especially from like 2017 and whatnot. Like, for example, they did the Immaculate Constellation thing the day they were supposed to have that hearing. That got canceled, I guess, which was another like weird thing where Luna said it was because Grush couldn't make it, and then Lou said it was because of a different reason and whatnot. So I don't know. It's weird, but
Yeah, if let's say hypothetically, right, what Brown said is true. That it's an entity of human beings who have very pervasive control in every area. These guys, for them, money is just numbers that they type into your bank account. So they can make you rich, they can make you poor, they can, let's say for argument's sake, it is a very high level control element that's doing it. They can affect your career, they can affect anything about you. So stepping up against them for somebody who's in a political career is ridiculous. It's almost like career suicide for them. And these people have sold themselves like to the highest bidder for years. So they're only going to do the same thing again. This is all they've trained to do. They are politicians. You can make them. They can literally have an agenda. They can dislike you until they drop a donation. Until you drop a donation to their account, and then all of a sudden they're on your side. We've seen politicians flip, whether that be allegedly because they're in some sort of prepubescent honey trap, as some people have alleged that the Epstein agenda was, or whether it's because they're going to lose their career and they're looking for funding and support, so they have to go to the guy with their hat in their hand and say, please, drop a few pennies in I'll stop talking about it, whatever it might be. But those people who haven't done that and haven't, let's say, bent their knee to these people, I think I'm going to say it, man. I think it's like the Naps and the Corbells and the people they bring to the table, because they seem to have a level of credibility that haven't showed, at least yet, to me, to have sold themselves out. I'm not saying they haven't done anything wrong or that they're completely perfect, but I would say that what they've brought to the table, I think, he holds a little bit more credibility than the Lou group over on the other side. Correct me if I'm wrong. If people don't agree, you can jump in. I don't mind. Put your hand up if you've got something to say, guys. I don't want it to be just me spouting off my opinions on it. But I've got maybe it's because I'm old school, but I do like George Knapp. I really do, and I kind of want him to bring the most credible stuff to the forefront. And I know they've had their little hiccups over the last few years with a few of the things they've brought forward, but it's especially with counterintelligence, it's very difficult, I think, to navigate this completely without to come out completely unscathed. You're always going to get some sort of wounding when you're in battle, right? So, but yeah, I think that his stuff, what he brings forward, is a little bit more credit. Hence why we're talking about Matt Brown today. I'm glad it was him who brought him forward. One quick question as well, and I did see Ross tweeted about it a little bit, and I do like Ross Coulthard. I think that he is genuine in what he does, even though I think that he'll bring anybody on to discuss it, on his channel. Pretty much he'll talk about anything, and he's open to discussing a lot of things, and he's very open-minded. But since Grush, I think he's kind of he needs another big wing. He needs another Grush. One quick question to everybody here. If you could ask Grush a question about since what he's revealed, what would it be? What would you ask him? Myself personally, I'd like to know that how he's doing. What's going on, dude? Why have you gone so quiet? I think somebody like him could do with some people around him, because if what he said he claims to be true, he's put himself in a catch-22 situation. If he doesn't toe the line of the new disclosure project, then he's kind of kept out of the loop, and that seems to be what's happened. So on and so forth. I feel sorry for him, man. I'd like to have a chat with him, man, because I feel bad for Grush, and I think he had more to his story that we're yet to find out. Go on, Imran.
I think Sam had his hand up first, man.
Oh, sorry, Sam. Go for it.
Sorry, I was just going to say regarding Rush. And it's also even the Soul Foundation, which is having all the scientists and Jacques Vallée and even this big guy who was nominated for Nobel Prize. So it have so many people, and he was part of the Soul Foundation. And suddenly now, I think his name has been taken off from there. And at the same time, you can understand his perspective if and only if how we see the phenomena as a spiritual related phenomena. He can be like, imagine being threatened that nobody gonna touch you, but your mind is gonna go loony. Remember what Louis Elizondo did to one of the prisoners? That's just an example. Imagine how other people can, how people who are really controlling the program can do remotely, not to you, to even to your family members. They can go crazy, just remotely. That's probably possible. If we believe that the phenomena has relation to jinn, which you can send it to track someone, like how Chris Bledsoe was asking for someone's DNA in order to heal his daughter. He asked her for a piece of her hair, just exactly like how magicians work, saying, "Give me a piece of her hair, but just for the DNA," as if the demons or these creatures sniff the DNA of a human. That's how they check also bloodlines. And at the same, so imagine he could be threatened by anyone, and you don't have, no one will pull a trigger, but just you're gonna lose your mind. And that's, it seems like that jinn are probably very capable of making someone go loony, like full on crazy.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate. There's even some stuff on ResearchGate. If people are interested in the more academic side of it, there are some articles and real research, medical, psychological research on jinn and the possession / psychological illness that comes with these, let's say, more traditional ideas about mental illness and so on and so forth. But yeah. You are 100% right. If we take that as reality, that the jinn or the shayateen or this phenomena is behind that, it's very easy to have voices in your head telling you to do A, B, C, or making you think in a certain way, engineering you, through your consciousness. And somebody like Rush or whoever it might be, a whistleblower, could be plagued with such a thing, and it could come down as something like Savannah syndrome. Havana syndrome. Yeah. Savannah syndrome. You can tell I'm in a long week, boys and girls. Oh, mate. Well, who's next, man? I've got to stop.
Actually, I was reading in a book about the metaphysics of social engineering for Charles Upton, and it was having almost like a comparative study between what you said about the psychological effects from jinn possession, and also from Catholic perspective, because he was a Catholic, and comparing it with John Mack's conclusions on what happened to the people who had the experiences. And one very prominent one was broken marriages and family-related issues. And we, as Muslims, know how broken marriages play a big role from the jinn perspective.
Dude, honestly, I've got a whole thing I would love to talk. Maybe not today, we do it another day. But look at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and these sort of things. How it's almost become an entertainment to watch people's marriages and relationships fall apart, and how this, especially in the dating world, women who are married or men who are married who are being constantly bombarded with messages and private messages from people telling them how beautiful and loving they are, and it kind of creates this dimension where the grass is greener, and it causes the destruction of marriage, and kids end up getting raised with two parents, and they're going to court and fighting one another, and this has become entertainment now. You can sit and watch video after video after video of people's lives being destroyed, which I shouldn't laugh about. It's not funny, but it's almost where we've ended up. And there's a lot to be said about how this coincides with what we think is the intentions of the UAP UFO phenomena, being that it wants a disrupted sort of, non-harmonious, broken society. Sammy, I'm going to have to pause you there, brother, for a moment. Imran, I don't know if you want to jump in, but we've got one of the coolest looking little thumbnails with a winking UFO alien or whatever. I don't know. Good morning, UFO. Jump in. Welcome to the show. Good morning, UFO.
Thank you, Bloke, for letting me part of the space. Interesting conversation. I'd love to have a conversation about marriage. It's very interesting because you bring up a lot of really good points. Marriage is a really weird institution in 2025. But I just wanted to go back to Lou Elizondo. Lou Elizondo is, in my opinion, most definitely a disinformation agent. I think he works for Northrop Grumman, and I think Northrop Grumman is in possession of extraterrestrial materials from the Roswell crash. If we want to get specific, I think it's a metal called nitinol, and it was so anyway, people have obtained this. So Lou Elizondo is definitely a disinformation agent, and the reason for that is what just happened on the internet in the last 24 hours was what they wanted. We're not dealing with a superficial spy. We're dealing with a counterintelligence spy. This is the second faked, strange photo, and you can't tell me they couldn't have run this campaign through an AI and not come to the conclusion that the internet wouldn't have figured out in 30 minutes that Lou Elizondo's photo he showed yesterday was irrigation circles. I mean, that is the standard. And
sorry to butt in quickly. Do you think that was purposeful in order to sort of bury the Matt Brown revelation and George Knapp and Corbell's sort of interview? Do you think that's why it was timed just after they dropped that? What do you think on that? Is that what you think? Or do you think they're also part of that sort of disinformation campaign?
Well, I think they scheduled it before it, but I do think coordinated drops happen frequently. Not only
like we have the Hal Put-Off thing, right?
Yeah, like the Hal Put-Off thing. Yes, exactly. Yes, Red. Yeah, God, Red, I'm glad you're here. Yes, they coordinate it to their advantage. And also, on the flip side, you're dealing with a massive amount of entertainers and content creators. A lot of them don't make money, but some of them really have this be their job. Specifically, I'll say like Jeremy Corbell. I'm a George Knapp fan. Jeremy Corbell, I don't know. I mean, I follow him completely because this is what I do. But with Jeremy, he coordinates his drops 100%. The day that Skywatcher released really clear tic-tac footage on that same day, it was almost as though Jeremy Corbell had taken out from his archive. All of a sudden, he had this whistleblower and some footage of all sorts of tic-tacs. And I call this a piggybacking method when you're doing this in content creation. Like, if something's really popular and trending, like I see influencers like Jeremy Corbell does it quite a bit. Like, they're talking about this. Okay, well, I know that's a keyword that's going to work, so I'm going to make sure that I'm following TikToks today too. So not only do you have content creators doing it just to expand their scope, make more money, grow their brand or whatever, but on the same level, you have this being executed out by the government. I can't tell specifically what intentions it would be to have, a disinformation agent, and people think it's like this awful thing to ask. Like, I feel like that should be the first question that we should have for people who are associated with the government coming forward, giving us all sorts of insane information. I also wanted to note to everybody who watched the thing yesterday, or at least skimmed through the briefing, which I did, that had Avi Loeb, had Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, Eric Davis from the Wilson Eric Davis documents, Burchett and Luna. And also, I wanted to note, they left. Eric Davis was sitting there. You had Luna, Burchett, and Burleson. Burleson thinks angels are demons, okay? Like, he doesn't give a fuck what people are talking about. He's like, all right, yeah, because he's hardcore fundamentalist. I call them magic Christians, because if I have Jesus in my heart, but I'm not a magical Christian. Like, I don't think I can heal people, and I don't think that just because, like, I say something's magical or whatever, it's going to happen. But, like, Burleson seriously thinks that the UAP are angels. So you had Tim, Burchett and Luna walked out after Eric Davis started talking, believe it or not, because he started saying the Nordics, the reptilians, the Dracos, and then Luna was like, this has been great, but I'm going to head out. So's Tim. We'll see you guys later. Because specifically,
sorry, I've got to get in the loop on this. I missed all of this. So
you missed a bunch, bro. It was wild.
Dude, I missed a lot, man. And to be honest, I put Eric Davis with the former group, the Lakatskis and so on and so forth. So it's even more interesting to hear that after me thinking that they then separate themselves quite physically in this thing. I've got to see it, man. Can someone post it in the comments of this space so I can watch it later?
I did a show on it. I'll pop it in, and then Red has some really good tweets.
Thank you.
I used a lot of Red's tweets for my show about it, so I'll put that in there too.
Yeah, spot on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was listening, but I was like, oh, God, I've missed so much.
And the big thing, like she said, was the loop pick. And like I said earlier, too, like there was a congressional briefing, right? But if you go look at Google News on UFO, it's all about that picture, dude. And he knows, dude. That's what it had to have been on purpose,
yeah, and
right?
What it does, yeah.
Yeah, and it's crop circles. You can clearly tell, right?
Yeah, irrigation circles. So, yeah, and it was purposely put out. So why make Lou Elizondo look like the fraud? He got shaken down about 3 years ago, pretty hardcore. Really good researchers triangulated him. Some of them are still like, yeah, we see it, guys. You're disinformation or no big deal. But the reason that Lou Elizondo's out there continuously putting out fake information is they are countering and they're trying to make the person that looks good or the person they're trying to make look good look even better. So as Lou Elizondo puts out all this fake stuff, guess what? Grush looks even better every day. Every time that Lou Elizondo looks more fake, Grush looks amazing. Like, Grush has never done any of that. So it kind of also makes me think that they're setting Grush up to be sort of the figurehead, because we've all figured out that Lou Elizondo is the disinformation agent. The government knows it, everything. The way they executed that yesterday, it was like, yeah, like I got online and read, and Tupa already figured it out. They're like, irrigation ditches, like 20 minutes after the meeting. Like 20 minutes after the meeting, everybody freaking figured it out. And it's because they knew we'd figure it out. And they knew, and what happens then is you get people who are really into it. They're like, yeah, that's just an irrigation circle. Not only is that getting people like disgruntled or upset if they're really invested in this topic, but on the same token, anybody who's new to the topic that comes to it, they're like, what's this guy have here? Oh, it's just an irrigation circle? The whole UFO community is full of shit then. They're all crazy. They're showing irrigation. This is what the community is. I don't need to pay attention to this. And the longer they can push us to the side, well, that's all part of the slow disclosure process. That's what's most important with the slow disclosure process, is that this happens slowly, because this is going to be traumatizing. It could take a 200-year rollout, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, I think from that specifically, I think the target audience here isn't your religious folk, really. Let's be honest. It's more the atheist, the one who's going to, not the atheist in particular, but those who don't really pay attention, because there's people who say, I believe, but do they really, in an unseen entity or an unseen or a parallel universe, whatever it might be. So, yeah, definitely, I think it could take a lot longer, because, number one, having control of whatever is perceived by the public is going to give you the power in the future. If you're the one who's able to, say that, guys, it's us over here who have got the truth now, right? And we're the ones, like, look at how Jesse Michaels, for example, really brings in the historical narrative of ufology through the scientific endeavor of aerospace technology companies and people trying to break physics back in the day. And, he really brings all that in to try and soften and cushion it. But in reality, whenever it's presented to people in positions of authority within the scientific community, they reject it almost wholeheartedly. They don't want to hear this. They want to talk about it, because their careers have been built on other than that. And if this is the new truth, it kind of means that what they were upon was a type of falsehood, which don't look good at the end of the day. I want to come back to you, good morning, UFO, because I really like the way you speak. But we've got Jazzy J, Mo. Jazzy J, the Patriot. I like that. Reminded me of Jazzy Jeff from back in the day, man. So, yeah, jump on, Jazzy.
Yeah, I'm so silly. That's actually used to work with Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
No way, bro.
90.
Nostalgia right there,
How many
man.
of us? You know how many people? You know how many people in these groups are musicians? There are so many musicians in this group. It's ridiculous. Anyhow, so a couple things. I just want to say a couple things. First of all, okay, let's just take Lou as an example. I mean, why would he be so committed to this? Going to these meetings, doing this, doing that, showing pictures, talking. Why is he so committed to this thing? I mean, I'll say that in a different ways. Take Adam Schiff. Why is that motherfucker so committed to doing such dumbass shit? Why are they so committed? Is this some secret thing going on that's so worth it that they're that committed to their time, their money? They're doing all this. They could be doing anything. They could be doing anything else. Why are they committing so much of it? That's number one. The second thing I wanted to ask also is take like what's his name, Mellon, Chris Mellon, and you know, any of these David Grush, whatever. What in the world is stopping? You know, Chris Mellon, he got his security clearances like instantly for people. Instantly. I mean, days he got it. Trump is in office. God, where are these people's security clearances? Number two. That's number two. And then the third part is, as they're digging deep into who, you know, I want this piece, I want access to this, I want access to that. Where are they getting stopped? Who is that? What level? Where is this getting stopped? Those are my three questions for all you all.
No, I've literally got these as question marks throughout the last sort of 7-8 years that I've been really digging deep into the ufology. Who's the guy? What belt is he wearing that he's pulling off and shaking at someone that they're saying, oh, okay, we'll do whatever he says. Whoever it is, man, he's either got some really big fists or a very fast pistol, man, one or the other. Jazzy, I'm going to pop over to Imran. You've had your hand up for a while, so let me jump onto you, brother. And then we got Money. I think it was Money Penny, bro. We got the big hit, the heavy hit. Your Money Penny. Nice. So we'll go to you, Imran, first. Go for it, bro.
This is very interesting, man. I'm really enjoying listening to all these perspectives. If anything, it's confirming certain things. So, you know, Alexander's always been a question mark. And him dropping that image, I did have a look at that image, and I saw the responses that came out, and people calling it what it was. That was so. It's just beyond deliberate, man. Honestly, I think the Elizondo is in its, and you got to also remember, yes, it's drip feeding and it's, you know, slow disclosure, but at the same time, disclosure towards what? It's their specific narrative, and there is an in crowd. I mean, Red Panda has experienced this firsthand, and he could probably share some thoughts in regards to his experiences. But you know, these guys, it's almost like a cult. They want to control the disclosure, and they want to control the narrative of the disclosure. And anyone else that goes against the grain is gonna be cancelled. But it's refreshing to see so many people that are picking up on this stuff and calling a spade a spade. You know, that's brilliant, and more people need to do that. You know, there needs to be this counterculture to hold people to account, essentially. Not that, you know, even if it doesn't make a big difference, it does make a difference, at least on social media, to many people listening in. Because some people coming into this, they see Alexander, and I think Good Morning mentioned this, they see Alexander as one of the main guys leading the disclosure effort, and he drops, you know, such a or makes such a big mistake, and people are going to think, well, hold on a second, this is one of the best guys in the you know, as one of the experts or one of the leading figures, and he doesn't know what he's doing. People are going to completely lose hope in the whole process and just see this as nonsense again. So it's very deliberate. I don't know if Grush is a part of their group. I'm not too sure. He has gone quiet. It seems like Melon and Elizondo and a few others who, and then you've got the Jim Simivan and Tom DeLong and the, you know, To the Stars Academy guys as well. So there's different groups, and they all seem to be trying to. It's hard because there's a lot of ego involved in this as well. They want to, you know, every group wants to be the first to you know, make that discovery or to announce that make that big announcement. And even with the Corbell and these guys. You know, I mean, you can see Corbell's reaction. You know, remember during the last congressional hearing when the guy didn't mention his name, he really was offended. You know, if you look at the bigger picture, it's a very small detail, but he was really offended by it. So, I mean, ego's inevitable. It's going to be involved. But the issue is, and I think this is the bigger thing, and Faruq, we've mentioned this before as well, is that there's different elements to this phenomenon, or this NHI seems to be engaging on different levels of society. It's engaging with the common folk, and as we know them as experiences. Then it's engaging with the academics to a level. We know D.W. Pasulka has had experiences. We know Gary Nolan has had his own experiences, and they're coming out. And it's also engaging on a governmental level. And I think the governmental level is the most suspect, because that's most likely where you're not going to get truth from, right, at the end of the day. So I don't think just because, you know, that one element of this whole topic is fraudulent to some extent, it doesn't mean people should switch off, because we know this has been going on for centuries. You know, people have been experiencing this phenomenon throughout history. And there's so much more to this topic. And this is why we always say, you know, don't have that as your primary focus, as what is the government saying? What are they going to come out with? When are they going to, you know, spill the beans completely? I think this is far beyond that. Even if they come out tomorrow and say nothing's happening, it's all just, you know, whatever, a red flag, it's all just a hoax or whatever the case is, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't take away from the topic, because this has been going on for such a long time. And there are way too many people across the world, throughout history, throughout time, that have had experiences that you just cannot deny that there is a phenomenon.
Yeah, 100%, brother. Well said, man. I don't know if they're going to get their proverbial toothpaste back in the tube on this one. What is, I suppose, the worry is that they spin it how they want. Having access to the data that they do puts us all as individuals on the back foot who are trying to make heads and tails of this. I love the fact that, you know, what Red and Good Morning have said, you know, everybody in media is like, dude, this is nonsense. Don't ignore Lou. You know, it's just a way of him trying to, you know, take control of the narrative, ignore him, which is, I suppose, the purpose of UFO Twitter, as it used to be called. I've been in it for years. I just never really interacted much, you know, and because I was just quietly listening and learning from everybody. But you know, I like to see especially the unity behind certain understanding and ideas. And by the way, us lot at IREP, you know, we are learning and we want to benefit from you guys. Really appreciate you, Red, by the way, sharing our channel and encouraging others to come and listen and learn from what we know about from our side of the study of this particular topic. But also, you know, we want to learn and benefit from you. Tag us in things, share things with us. We're here to learn, and we want to have a more coherent understanding, because ufology is just the modern exploration of what this thing is, and it's, you know, ancient according to what we understand. So, Moneypenny, you're up next, but I have to say this. I've noticed it says in your bio they're a huge F1 fan, so please don't mention the qualifying, because I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to be watching it as soon as this space is over. So, yeah, jump on, Moneypenny.
Join the club. I haven't seen it yet either, and I do hate it. I really have to hide from every type of media input. I will absolutely strangle somebody that gives it away. Honestly, I'm just like you.
It's the only thing I'm like that with, though, is Formula One. I just like I mock anybody else who says, "Oh, I don't want to know the ending," and I laugh at them and say, "Well, you're ridiculous." When it comes to Formula One, I'm getting the exact same way. So
I think
yeah,
you invest. I mean, you're investing 3, 4, 5 hours often in Formula One, and it's you've put that 4 hours aside to do something, and if somebody just says one word or you hear one thing on the radio about the result, that 4 hours is just gone.
Yeah. Are you like me? Because if I find out, I don't watch it. It just takes all the interest out from me.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, go on. On more pressing matters, Moneypenny, what would you like to say?
So on more pressing matters, I'll probably need to speak to you and IREP and anybody else in this group. Firstly, you can probably hear I'm British. Secondly, I've probably spent about 30 hours in the past 2 weeks studying the Quran and the Bible and the religious texts or scriptures or parables or stories within them that I believe have been wrongly misinterpreted and actually reference not only scientific disciplines, but actual visions, miracles, and quite often fire, gold, shining lights, all these things that are actually references to non-human intelligence. So I've been doing this huge, great big study, and I've put together my own document that is a massive comparison all the way through the Bible versus the Quran of the different references and the two different testimonies, looking at the different types of references, particularly because I believe ultimately every type of religion is a scientific and practical communication of things like earth's sacred energy, things like how to create energy and use natural electromagnetics in the earth, natural gravity, natural water, vacuums, ball lightning, all those things. I'm a complete science nerd. So I've done quite a lengthy comparison. And for example, you look at Ezekiel's wheel, okay? So Ezekiel's wheel is a reference that a lot of people know of. It's quite a powerful visual description of something. Now, this is, I hope you think this is fascinating. So I've taken things like Ezekiel's wheel, taken the text, put it into an AI, not told the AI it's a biblical text or deliberately worded it so that it doesn't work that out, and asked it to interpret it visually to see how it does it. And I mean, one of them is on my profile, where you can see that when you put the definition of Ezekiel's wheel in, so you describe it like the Bible and you take out the emotional parts of it, you actually get a picture of a UFO or an alien. The descriptions in the Bible and the Quran are people under high dramatic emotional states who see gold flashing things in the sky, who see things that are extraordinary that they don't know, particularly as, you know, we don't know what the technology was like at the time, but it probably wasn't that advanced. So when you saw a flying saucer arriving, you would describe it as a gold god with flashing lights or whatever. So when you give that to AI, it will create an image and it will be a UFO or an alien. It is fascinating.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Funny you mentioned, you know, as a form of research, just predominantly, maybe for the past 20 years in studying Islam, but in particular, I've focused in on NHI within Islam. And we have found so many, not just from the Quran and from the ahadith, as they're called, the prophetic sort of traditions, but as well as historical, you know, from the Arabian culture, pre-Islamic Arabian culture, as well as post-Islamic Arabian culture, and historical incidents related to UAP, UFO phenomena that are undeniable. With modern, like I would say, what's more accurate is that the modern understanding of ufology is deliberately presented as a technological thing, specifically by the UAP UFO phenomena itself, because it seems to manifest itself to whatever time frame you're in. So, for example, in the time of the Arabs, you know, about 1,000 years ago, they used to aid certain humans in flight. But it would be flight with which there was no technology. They would just float through the sky. And there was one individual as well, and this is well documented in authentic sources. This isn't just like one narration from one, you know, area of the world, say Syria, for example, but rather this particular narration was collected by multiple sources across different regions of a man who used to perform the religious pilgrimage on a flying donkey. It sounds ridiculous. When you read the story, you would immediately chalk it up to some sort of superstitious belief or understanding about an event that you know, was misinterpreted or an outright lie. But because of the nature of the narration being from multiple different sources, this guy, it's a well-known, famous story. And the story goes, the father of the man, it was his father who used to fly the donkey, right? And he used to perform this religious pilgrimage. And when his father died, because of how famous he was for having this flying donkey, everyone attended his funeral. And his son, on the time of pilgrimage, when it came round, it was his turn to take the donkey. So he got on the donkey and it walked him out into the desert. And he was excited to fly there because he was now going to become, just like his father, famous guy for flying this donkey. Yeah. He said that the donkey stopped and spoke to him. Sounds bizarre, speaking donkey, let alone a flying. He's head on the ground to me, and I would in turn take him to Hajj, take him to the religious pilgrimage. If you do the same thing for me, yeah, I will do the same for you. If you worship me, I will carry you there. This man is doing this pilgrimage for the sake of God, to worship God. Now he's being told, if you worship me as a donkey, I'll take you on pilgrimage. He became enraged and he cut the donkey's head off. He killed the donkey and he went back home and he told all of his villagers and his family his father was a charlatan. He wasn't a religious man. He was a worshipper of devils and jinns. This is how they interpreted it. These particular entities come in the form of donkeys or the form of human beings or in other more strange forms like bipedal wolves, as has been described in more modern cases, as well as bipedal wolves dating back 1,000 years. So it's not like the first time we've heard of bipedal wolves, but that's how they manifest themselves. And it was, in turn, if you do X for me, I will do Z for you, for example. Yeah, it wasn't a one-way relationship. It was a two-way relationship. That's just one example, but it was less technological. Even though I did mention earlier, you wasn't here, Moneypenny, but we do have a narration of what's in its description. It sounds identical to a smartphone. It was a smooth, shiny piece of glass over a liquid, of which he could speak to the jinn entity, or the UFO or phenomena, whatever. You could speak to it, ask it questions, and it would show him his followers. So whatever the follower was doing, he would see that information. And then later on, he would say to his follower, oh, you was bending down cleaning a bowl, as an example. And the follower would say, how do you know? And he said, you was really struggling, you were scrubbing really hard. And he said, yeah, how did you know this? Because he had been shown it on this device. So yeah, we certainly have a lot of narrations that go back to, let's say, indicating, a knowledge gap that this phenomena held, and it, like in their interpretation, because they don't have things like phone, they don't have an understanding of how things work that way. And us today, we have, an understanding of technology and things like that. They were more impressed by things within their own society. So like flight, like having information traveling from one area to another instantaneously, like seeing somebody cleaning a bowl, for example. It was very impressive. Today, if I said, oh, yeah, I saw you today and you were walking eating a Subway sandwich, and I say, yeah, well, who phoned you? Or, what, was you looking for a camera? It's not an amazing thing, yeah? If I said, oh, there's a flying donkey, you'd say, oh, what is it? Is it a balloon that's shaped like a donkey? You could come up with an explanation for it. But back then you couldn't. It was, amazing to them. But today, the thing seemingly, the phenomena, because it wants to get people's attention and wants to have their adoration, it's it's come in a form of technology, which is what the world respects today. Nowadays, people respect technology. If you've got the best technology, the whole world is listening and bending to you and wants to get access to it. So this phenomena presents a technology that's so far ahead and so far advanced that it can't be replicated. It can't be emulated in any way, shape or form. And it's performing, maneuvers that can't be replicated, as the Tic Tac guy. Well, I've always forget his name, man. God forgive, what's his name? The guy who saw the Tic Tac and flew in tandem with it.
Commander Fravor.
Ryan.
Yes. Yeah, Commander Fravor, right? So Commander Fravor, he saw what he's like. This is, we can't replicate this, and that's why it's a phenomenon. That's why it's amazing to us, because it's a technology, something that we respect, something we want to. So we're hankering after it, running after it. In them days, flying to Hajj was phenomenal. Nowadays, how many people fly to Hajj? Millions. From around the world, they fly to perform pilgrimage to Mecca. So it's not that big a deal, but back then it was a huge deal because nobody could fly. So it was a phenomenon, so to speak, in their times. Sorry, Manny, we'll go to Imran. You got your hand up, bro?
Yeah, just to comment on that point. So, in regards to this point on interpretation, I think is very interesting. So there are different camps in regards to how people see this. So some would say that, what people saw in the past, they interpreted it in a way they understood it, but the phenomenon was the same, whatever the objects and stuff were. And some would say it's the other way around. But I think when you bring into play the idea of this phenomenon being able to take on different forms and shapeshift, that adds a whole new dimension to the discussion as well. So, and that is what I think what you've articulated, bro, which is, that it's taken on different forms throughout history. So the people, say 1,000, 2,000 years ago, when they would see something in the sky, they would see what they would describe, and it would most likely be that, because that was a form it took. Whereas what people describe today, it's a form this phenomenon is taking today. So when you factor in the sort of shape-shifting element, it really opens up the discussion, and it gives a third perspective to the discussion, which I think is very interesting. And it's also in line with, I think, the research of people like Jacques Vallée, where he highlights that, for example, people at different times in history saw things which were more advanced than the technology they had, but still close enough and had some resemblance so they can, appreciate it to some degree. Because if it was so advanced, they would have no clue as to what it was. But it was just advanced enough where it would leave them in awe. So, for example, in medieval times, he gives the example of, people seeing flying ships and these ships throwing anchors overboard. So I think that's I wanted to mention that point, because it does add in a third perspective as well, inshallah.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And that's something I'm going to have to say, because I've been on here for a while now. Had a brutal week at work, put in many hours. And as Moneypenny has mentioned, I want to get on and see the qualifying before I go to bed. So I'm going to finish myself now. You guys can carry on here, as you don't mind. But I really appreciate, everyone coming on and talking to me tonight. And Moneypenny, it'd be great to see you come back another day. And we could definitely delve in a lot to the research you've been doing, and maybe share a little bit more insight from our perspective. There are literally, and I'm not kidding when I say this, there are so many books and writings on the phenomena from the sources in Arabic that just haven't been translated into English. That it's missing from ufology purely on the basis that you guys just can't really get access to it. So hopefully over time we'll introduce you guys to some of this information. It just broaden our horizons, all of us together, as we try to nail down and understand who's behind the UAP phenomenon.
Very cool.
Thank you guys for letting me, for coming and speaking with me. I think the group is going to carry on, but myself.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap up, bro. I think I've got an early start as well, and I think Faruq may need to go too.
Okay.
So when he ends it on his end, then it's going to end anyway. So I think maybe a good time to wrap up.
I just want to say before I go, and forgive me, Moneypenny, I know I'd like to have gave you more time to speak, as well as you. Good morning, UFO, and Red Panda. You've been, here since the beginning. So thanks for joining us, bro. Really appreciate it. Anything you need from us as well, yeah, you just send us a message privately, whether IREP, myself, or Imran. We're all linked anyway, so we're there to help
Arabic?
you out, man.
Can I just ask, do you speak Arabic, or do you have somebody that can translate it?
I'm a student of Arabic, should we say, but I do also have people who can translate it. We've got some
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, Sammy's Sammy's an Arab, man. He's
just to mention a very funny fact. For a while, everyone here have seen the Disney movie of Aladdin, right? He had a flying mat, and the flying mat had its own consciousness. It was aware. Nobody ever noticed this, and he had a genie.
Wow, I didn't think of that, bro.
He had a genie, and the genie was shape-shifting, moving him to places, and changing his clothes in a brink of a minute. And he used to have a song telling him, "You will never have a better friend than me."
That is true. That's true. Now I know you've got to go, Fox, so we're going to end it here. Thank you, everyone. By the way, we released our first episode of the IREP podcast. It's a little bit ropey. We've got a new camera for the wide shot. It looks absolutely horrible. But if you just want to check it out, please be my guest. And any comments you have, even if you want to trash it, go ahead. Just trash us in there. I'm not going to ask you to like and subscribe and to share and all that stuff, because if you like it, you're going to like it. If you subscribe, you're going to subscribe. I don't mind. It's not a monetary thing. We're not interested in that. We're just doing this for the fun of it, really. So, check it out, guys. It's on IREP World on YouTube. Got our first episode came out today. Absolutely trash.
Very cool, man.
And have a good weekend, everybody. And thanks to all of you for joining us today, and we'll be back same time next week, 9 p.m. UK time, we shall see you there. Thanks everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.